Welcome back to the Royal Buzz podcast, where legacy meets leadership and purpose meets the crown. Your go-to podcast that's buzzworthy and dedicated to purpose-driven leadership, legacy, and authority-driven storytelling. Where Hive meets hype, listen to the magic, one story at a time. I'm your host, Trena Myers, Miss Elite United USA and Queen Bee of the Creative Agency. Today's episode is one that will have our audience walking away feeling validated, informed, empowered, and more connected to their feminine design. What if the very thing you've been told makes you too emotional, too tired, or too much is actually your superpower? In this episode, we're redefining what it means to be a woman in rhythm with her body. Because men may operate like the steady sun, but women, we are the moon. Cyclical, powerful, designed with intention. And when you understand that design, everything changes. Today on the Royal Buzz podcast, I am honored to welcome Amy Lenius. Amy is a professional speaker, next-level certified personal development and success coach, and the director of group coaching at the Next Level University. For nearly a decade, she has spoken on stages dedicated to health, healing, and personal development. Served as an MC for Next Level Live, and has been featured on more than 175 podcasts. But what makes Amy's work so powerful isn't just her credentials, it's her lived experience. After rebuilding her health, identity, and self-worth, following years of chronic illness, Amy now helps women redefine success in a way that feels deeply aligned. Her coaching is rooted in a whole person approach, addressing mindset, health, relationships, purpose, and identity, guiding women to honor their cyclical nature, strengthen emotional resilience, and build sustainable daily habits. At the heart of everything she teaches are three foundational pillars: self-worth, self-belief, and consistency. Because when those three are aligned, success stops feeling exhausting and starts feeling nourishing. Let's dive in. Welcome, Amy, and thank you so much for taking the time out today to share a little bit about who you are and how you make a difference in those around you. So, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what drives you?
Hi, yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and looking forward to our conversation today. So, like you said, my name is Amy Lenius. I'm currently working with an amazing company down in the States. I myself am from Canada. I partner with a company down in the States called Next Level University, and you actually just interviewed our CEO and someone I work closely with and love and deeply respect, and I'm so grateful for his mentorship, Alan. You got to have a great
Yes.
with him. So that's exciting. I'm excited that you get to connect with both of us and see how different people can come together in an aligned way for the sake of the same core values, the same mission. And so I always find that really fascinating. And people give us that compliment all the time that they see how different Kevin Allen and myself are as the three front facing people of this company, the different energies we bring, but how valuable it can be. So I always think that's one of the greatest compliments that we get. But we deeply believe in self awareness and personal development for the sake of your own individual version of success. And you and I were talking behind the scenes here quickly that we both have dealt with illness. You yourself are going through things. I myself have been through things. And I think that's where my journey of growth and love for empowering people with education and information, and women especially, about their bodies and how to work with their natural cycles versus against it, and all the things that I had to go through and learn to get myself healthy from a hormonal condition as well. And so all of the things that I have been through, as far as my education in anatomy and physiology, to dealing with my own health journey, to my own personal growth journey, to where it has led me now, all kind of came together in this beautiful way.
Well, thank you so much for that amazing intro. And you're right. I think that a lot of times people let challenges, like health challenges, define who they are and totally redirect their life. And don't get me wrong, there are some illnesses out there that do take control, and it is hard to navigate your life in a way that is sustainable. However, the incidences where you and I have gone through, fortunately, I know for myself, I've let my illnesses not define who I am, but give me a purpose and a why.
Absolutely. And like I said to you behind the scenes, I love that you're honoring what you have to do while still pouring into what you want to do on like things like this show. And I admire that so deeply.
So, Amy, can you tell us how did you go about rebuilding your health after your chronic illness diagnosis?
Absolutely. So I was diagnosed in my late teens with endometriosis, so a very hormonally driven chronic pain condition for women. And in the early days, it was a lot of confusion. It was, okay, now what does this mean? What do I do? Who do I talk to? And the people I talk to, are they even being helpful? And I felt very stuck in a place of, this is the diagnosis. These are the only things we can do for you. You're probably never going to be able to have kids. We could try giving you a hysterectomy, but it might not work. And here's all the painkillers we can give you. Here's all the hormonal interventions we can give you. And here's these surgeries. And so I did all of the above except for the hysterectomy, because I deeply wanted to be able to try and have children. That was one of my biggest goals in life, was to become a mother. So I just followed that system along for a while, and I was taking all the drugs that they wanted me to take. I had done the surgeries, and what I found was I started feeling worse rather than
Yes,
in maintenance, because they
right,
tell you you can't feel better, but we can do our best to maintain it. And I started feeling worse because of just all the different drugs I was on and all the different
right.
things that I was doing to, in air quotes, be healthy. And so I had a moment in my early 20s where I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start from scratch. I'm going to go off of everything, get to know my body again, see what's working, what isn't, what's just a side effect versus what my body is actually going through. And that process taught me a lot. I myself was in school for massage therapy at the time, and I had learned so much about the human body, and I had learned already bits and pieces about my own condition. And so I just started getting curious, and I started exploring different types of modalities of wellness. I went into acupuncture, physiotherapy, craniosacral therapy. I did all sorts of different fun things. And, with just exploring and getting off of certain medications, I was not feeling any worse, not necessarily feeling any better, but I wasn't on all the drugs. So those symptoms
Right.
were better. And
Yes.
my pain that came with endometriosis, I mean, I'd had that for years. I can function with that. And so I at least had a clearer head and was feeling better in my guts and everything else, and all the side effects were gone from the drugs. And so that was a big win. And I was like, even if I could just maintain this, what a win. Because I can handle my pain, my things. Some days might not be great and I have to rest, or however that looks like, but I've been living like this for years. So I can
Right.
keep going. But as my curiosity broadened and as I kept getting just little wins, little bits better, a little bit better, I started to really double down on it and be like, what if I was more intentional with this? And so, even with the things that I did initially, we were able to get pregnant with our first son, which was incredible. And then after he was born, I found a really incredible naturopath. And In his practice, he was all about looking at the body as a whole, and I
Yes.
fell in love with that because how often are we just told we're bits and pieces and that's it? We're only gonna look at this one piece and not factor in the fact that your whole body internally is a community. It all works together. Your
Right.
guts, your liver, your all of it works together with your hormones and vice versa, and that was a really powerful perspective because everyone had always just looked at my uterus, how it wasn't functioning properly, and what can we do to kind of just mitigate that. And so him diving into my liver function, my gut health, my stress, my cortisol levels, my hormone levels, all of that was really eye-opening for me, and that started just this unbelievable compound effect of what I could do for my insides when I looked at it from a whole. And then I started realizing, well, you know what? Our internal community interacts with our external one. And those environments intertwine all the time. And so I had someone bring to my attention that our external environment and the things that are in it, the toxins we're using, the stress, all of that also plays a huge role on our internal environment. And so I fell in love with the word holistic. Holistic meaning that everything affects everything else. And when you try
Right.
and segregate things, you're doing yourself a disservice. And that's even how I started dipping my toes in with Next Level University because they started talking about holistic self improvement, how all of the things in your life affect all of the other things. So, how can we be the best we can be in all areas health, wealth, quality of life, and love, knowing that they all work together in a way or not?
Right.
So that just really took off when I started doing what I needed to do to understand and support my internal environment, detox, and really manage my external environment. I started to heal. We had our second son, which was amazing. And I am now
Congratulations.
thank you so much. That's, the greatest achievement of my life, honestly, is having my 2 boys. And now I am completely pain-free and in complete maintenance mode naturally from a condition I was told would bother me for the rest of my life.
Right. And as you're telling your story, I'm like, oh my goodness, has she been in my, following me? We
Mhm.
have lived very similar linear paths through those health challenges. Fortunately, I was able to have two children as well, but I too was told I was not gonna be able to have children, went through the surgeries. I ended up having a hysterectomy. First, they took out my uterus, left my ovaries, and, a year or 2 later, the endometriosis had come back onto my ovaries. Thankfully, it has not come back, but I too have taken that same path of looking at those external, um, effects that can definitely make a difference, and the vitamins and the medicines, I did all that too. I fired a doctor because he had me on all these different medications that I'd wake up in the middle of the night just throwing up from the side effects of the medication, and to find that that wasn't even what I needed for my body.
Yes.
So it's interesting, the things that we as humans have to go through, the challenges of diagnosis, but then as a woman on top of it, being told, oh, it's all in your head and those sort of things. But now that you've gotten to a point that you're in a holistic wellness mode, how did that shape the way that you teach and coach others today?
What a powerful question. So, I feel like it's a through line still in everything that I do in the world and the people that I serve, especially when I get to work with women, which is always just the best. I make sure that they understand that they themselves are cyclical beings and they don't bring the same energy week to week to things at all. And I think that just the amount of permission and space holding and validation that I have the ability to give, I think comes from my journey. Watching women just their face light up when they start to connect the dots of, oh, yeah,
Right.
during this week, I feel really great. And then the next week, I'm in this shame spiral because I can't be as energetic. I can't be as focused. I can't put as much into my workouts. I struggle to stick to my dietary choices, whatever it is that they're working on their individual version of success, whether it be in business or anything that they're doing. The cyclical nature naturally comes through, regardless whether we're working with it or against it unconsciously. And so, those little moments I can't help but bring into my coaching still. If you're coaching with me and you're a woman and you're coming to me for whatever it is, you will hear about it.
So, what does that mean for our listeners who maybe have never heard that term? What does cyclical nature mean, and how does it change how we set goals or show up?
Oh, absolutely. I would love to get into this. So, to take it very macro and high level at first, is men and women are very, very different. So, men, their hormonal cycle is like the sun. It's on a 24-hour cycle. Their highs and lows, ebbs and flows, everything that they go through hormonally is on a 24-hour cycle. So they themselves are the same every day. Now, of course, if they're tired, if there's sleep or anything like that, of course, there's variables within their physical health, but
Mhm.
hormonally, they're like the sun. And women are more like the moon that changes slightly every day and absolutely changes dramatically from week to week to week. Our hormonal cycle, the highs and lows and things, those are all stretched out between 26 and 34 days, depending on the individual. And so when you break that down into weeks, you are hormonally, mentally, physically, emotionally very different week to week to week. And when you can learn to understand how you show up and how you feel in those seasons, it's amazing because you can start to work within it rather than against it. And then I love to compare each breakdown of that 26 to 34-day cycle. There's 4 seasons. And I love comparing them to the actual seasons of the world because the energy of them are very, very similar. So your period itself is your inner winter. It's when you want to be in hibernation, you wanna be more cozy, you feel more internal. The idea of going externally seems really exhausting to you. And then you come into what's called your follicular phase afterwards, and that is known as inner spring. You start to feel like you're coming back to life, and during this time, you are extra creative. So, however that looks for your schedule professionally or creatively, artistically, that is a really good time to tap into that. Let's say you do social media or you do social media work even, you can use that time to batch content that you're creating because you are going to be in a more creative state. The next season is inner summer. That's when you're ovulating. So you are more articulate, you're more social, you're more outgoing. This is when, if you have control over your schedule, this is when you absolutely want to schedule your most important front facing things. So podcasting, for example, is a great example of this. There are
Yeah.
shows where I show up and I am in full energy, completely articulate, my brain is working for me, and I just have that more social energy. And so those shows always seem a little bit different to me than in, let's say, the next season when I'm in my inner fall. In inner fall, you start to again get a little more introspective, but you're actually hyper aware of your environment, the things around you, the people around you, and if they're basically set up for success or not. So this is a really good time to get organized, but it's also really a good time to know that your brain is primed to look for frustrations. And so when I am in that season, let's say, and I'm on a podcast, or even if I'm in my inner winter and I have podcasts scheduled, I can walk away from those shows without what might come as unconscious guilt or shame, being like, why couldn't I do as
Right.
a couple days, like a couple weeks ago or a week ago? No, I get to walk away knowing I brought the best energy to that I could. There's so much more permission knowing when you're in a season versus when you're not.
Absolutely.
Allows less guilt and shame to come in when you know that even though you still have to keep the same schedule, you internally know that you're not going to be able to bring the same energy to it, and that's okay.
Right.
You're literally not mentally, physically, and emotionally set up to do so. And so, regardless of whether you have more control over your schedule or not, even just the awareness of, you know what, this
Right.
week's going to look different and I got to take care of myself a little bit differently this week compared to a couple weeks ago. So, showing up in ways that make sense to you during this time, understanding how you show up during this time, it's all a key part of self awareness. And self awareness is just you knowing how you interact with the world, persons, places, things, ideas, all sorts of things. And it's such a key factor in that I think too many people are not tapped into, and it could do them so much good.
Absolutely. And I love this. I have not heard that breakdown before. And it gives you a whole different perspective of men are from Mars and women are from Venus. We really should say that men are from the sun and women are from the moon, and that would be more accurate.
Mhm, agreed.
So I love that. So for somebody like myself who's past menopause, I'm post-menopausal now. As you were talking about these different highs and lows and ways that our bodies change and react, I still see those, but it's different. And so for clients that maybe are in that menopausal state, do you see a difference on how they react to these seasonal changes or I should say, cyclical nature?
Absolutely. So you in a post-menopausal state, so there's your fertile years, your cyclical years, and then there's the messy middle called
Mhm.
perimenopause, and then there's menopause when you're done. You're
Yeah.
done cycling. And so the messy middle is like the Wild West for women, unfortunately. Perimenopause is when your hormones are changing, you're releasing less and less eggs, and then eventually menopause means you're 100% done cycling. You don't have periods
Yes.
anymore, you're not releasing any more eggs. So that is the final cycle of women. And so the extremes aren't there as much. You're not getting those highs and lows, those ebbs and flows. And what I love in what that brings for women is typically I find postmenopausal women more self-assured. They are more empowered. They are more in tune with themselves because they are no longer being run by their hormones.
Right.
They are who they are, and they have worked hard to become who they are, and they've worked hard to navigate their life through those highs and lows and ebbs and flows of the different things. And now they just get to be. And it is amazing to see the difference that that brings, especially just like I said, this empowered state and this authentic nature that women step into, and I always think that's really, really neat.
Yeah, no, I love it. And, as you're describing that, it was like a flashback of my teenage into my 20s on up, and now you're absolutely right. I think, it's at a stage of understanding who you are and where you are. And like you said, it's a mindset, and being aware of where you fall, whether it's part of, an active cyclical nature or, in the messy Wild West. I love it. Well, as we are wrapping up this conversation, I think that has been fascinating and I would love to learn more. But I wanted to give you an opportunity. Is there any last tidbits or golden nuggets that you'd like to leave with our audience?
Absolutely, I think it's just the through line of the episode is how can you be more self-aware in this way? So if you are a cyclical female, how can you use this information to empower yourself to increase your quality of life day to day, week to week, month to month? Because this is quality of life giving information. When you can tap into this, understand how each season works for you, works against you, how you can work with it, it really does make a difference in your life. And if you are a man listening to this podcast and you've made it through this far with us tossing around words like uterus and periods, power to you. Amazing.
Right?
Because I guarantee you have an important woman in your life. So in some shape or
Absolutely.
form, I hope you have an important woman in your life. And even you understanding this about them, about your spouse, about your daughters, you are now a more understanding man. And that is such a gift to give the women in your life to help them understand this, to help you understand this, why one week she's ready to go, feeling social, all of these things, and then the next week she wants to cancel plans, eat chocolate, and be living in her life.
Right,
You
right.
can
And
give someone permission there.
absolutely. And power is no, or knowledge is power.
Mhm. I agree. And it really is, especially if you use it. Knowledge is potential power. It's not actual power unless you do
Well,
something
that's
about
true.
it. And so if
Yes.
you can put this knowledge into action in some way, shape, or form and then build upon it,
Hmm.
that is true momentum, true change, true growth. And so, however, whichever piece stood out to you the most today, double down on that first and then keep expanding in what that means to you. And you'll watch your life change in amazing ways.
Wow. Thank you so much, Amy. This has been insightful for myself, I know, and it helped me get a different perspective on where I am and in that cycle, and really helped me feel a little bit more grounded of where I am and who I am. So, thank you so much.
Well, I'm so glad. Thank you so much for these wonderful questions and allowing me to come on here and speak about this important topic.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you.
After hearing this conversation with Amy, we hope that you realize that your body is not betraying you, it's communicating with you. When you learn its rhythm, you reclaim your power. If this episode resonated with you and you'd like to continue this conversation or apply to be a guest, visit creativehq.com. That's the number 8, TIVEHQ.com. You can also sign up for our newsletter for upcoming events. Thanks again for tuning in to the Royal Buzz, where you will discover inspiring stories, empowering discussions, and a whole lot of positivity.